And I want to thank all of you for being here with us this morning as we talk about the most important responsibility that we have as a free people, and that is to protect the lives of one another. And certainly one of the most sacred of trusts that any of us in government have. Chief, good to see you. We knew Elvis was in the building. And certainly, and Angela also Brooks. So one of the most sacred responsibility that any of us in government has is to do everything in our power to improve public safety, to save lives, to spare families from becoming victims of violent crime. And there are a few places in our state that has done this job quite so well over these last few years as here in Prince George's County under County Executive Rushern Baker's leadership, State's Attorney Angela also Brooks, who's with us, Chief McGaugh of the Police Department here in Prince George's, and also Sheriff High, who plays, his men and women play a critical role in making sure that warrants don't simply sit on a shelf, that we actually work together, communicate, collaborate, cooperate in order to serve the warrants on the most violent offenders as quickly as we possibly can, prioritize work, and make sure that the organization understands what the big goal is. The big goal is crime reduction, violence reduction. And I'm so very proud of all of those that are represented here today because really the future, our ability to make continued progress depends on closer, better, smarter, faster communications and coordination among all of the different entities and offices that are involved in this fight for human dignity and this fight to reduce violent crime. So Marcus, why don't you get us started here, even though I got us started, and then I'll save my other remarks for after.
Good morning, and thank you all for joining us here at Hughes Barney Investigations. And Jeanette, you're here somewhere. Thank you for the facility. We appreciate it. You know, the governor, as he already said, he often reminds us that the most important responsibility of government is public safety. And for all those standing up here with us today, you know, that have really dedicated our careers to public safety, we do want to thank the governor for his commitment over the past 8 years to public safety crime fight here in Maryland. Although we are here today to highlight the statewide successes that have occurred over the past 8 years, each person standing up here also realizes that these successes only occur due to the hard work of individual crime fighters across this state. Police officers, deputies, troopers, parole and probation officers, correctional guards, and prosecutors deserve so much of the praise for their individual efforts, which have resulted in historic crime reductions in almost every category. The O'Malley Brown administration has made reduction of crime a priority, and they have done it through 1, setting goals and measuring results, 2, improving coordination between public safety agencies on a federal, state, and local level with an emphasis on Maryland's Fusion Center, and 3, investing in crime-fighting technology, such as the Criminal Justice Dashboard, the statewide radio and CAD RMS systems, RAPID, ETICS, LPR technology, DNA caseload, backlog, and the list goes on and on. You know, although we can never claim a victory in the crime fight, the goals that have been achieved over the past 8 years have made communities in Maryland safer and saved lives. Responsible for leading that fight, I would like to again bring to the podium Governor Martin O'Malley.
Thanks, Martin. Colonel Brown, thanks a lot. And let me point out, no relation, Tammy Brown, who is our criminal justice coordinator in governor's office and does an outstanding job. Look, here's some numbers, and behind each of these numbers are human stories. Oftentimes they're human stories with faces we will never see or know because there are people who have been spared becoming victims of violent crime. So back in 2006, we declared a goal to reduce violent crime by 20% by 2012. We actually exceeded that goal. We reduced violent crime to almost 24% by 23.9%. So So, of course, you know the reward for achieving your goal. You have a higher goal. So the higher goal is actually further reductions in violent crime by another 20% by 2018. And there's not a doubt in my mind that with the technology and the common platforms that allow for faster, smarter individual interventions and solutions, that we can reduce violent crime again by 20%. In fact, since 2006, Marylanders together have achieved, with their law enforcement, courageous law enforcement officers, have achieved the third biggest reduction in violent crime of any of the states in these United States. We also set a goal to reduce violent crimes committed against women and children. And I'm so glad that the Vice Chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Delegate Kathleen DeMay, is with us, who's been a real leader, along with Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown, especially when it comes to crimes against women and crimes against children. We're also joined by Brian Frosch, the chair of the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee, who has been also a real leader in this drive to reduce violent crime overall, and especially against women and children. We set that goal actually at a 25% goal. Came up short in terms of reductions in crimes against women, but we actually exceeded the goal when it came to juvenile homicides, and we have re-upped that goal to another 25% by 2018. We also have, though I guess we won't be getting into it as much today, there are several strategic goals all related to improving homeland security, because we're in the National Capital Region. Until they move the nation's capital, we are always going to be at the center of this new struggle and work for resiliency and preparedness. And so we do have more ambitious goals than most states when it comes to that. 13 of them, in fact, the latest one being cybersecurity that we move towards. And one of those goals also has to do with interoperable communications, which is not only critical in the event of a big hurricane or some big human attack, it's also important every single day as our law enforcement officers and firefighters connect out there. So our I'm numbing your mind with numbers here, which make for awful TV, I know. It was actually, Tammy, 26% reduction that we achieved since 2006, homicides by 32%. We don't have all of 13's numbers in yet, but we continue to work together. Highlight here, we have driven down youth homicides, juvenile homicides, by 52%. 52%. And thanks to the leadership of Delegate DeMay and also Senator Frosch and so many others, we recently passed the Firearms Safety Act, comprehensive gun safety legislation. We have eliminated the backlog that came like an avalanche upon us when we passed that, and so now in a very timely way, we are able to do a much better job of preventing straw purchases and keeping guns out of the hands of offenders. Over the last few years, some of the most important and ongoing work that we've done is to build common platforms that allow us to talk to each other, to do simple things we couldn't do before. Some of those simple things involve things like digital fingerprints, which now we use throughout the state, instantaneous. A lot easier to share that with up and down the Atlantic seaboard, too. The facial recognition, the ability to get one of those grainy photos from an armed robbery at a convenience store, be able to match it against our database, and with some pretty rapid and mathematical certainty come up with the face that most closely matches that. Another thing that another common platform was the public safety dashboard that police officers and detectives throughout our state are using every single day, making sure that all of the different silos of information that we collected on would-be offenders from parole, probation to and others, that the base of those silos all land on the same common platform, so that we can see whether someone on probation or parole who's prohibited from even owning a firearm might be popping up buying ammunition. in another part of the state, thinking that somehow they're under the wire because they're over the border. And then some of the very important work that's been happening here with Prince George's County and Washington, D.C., sharing electronically that police intelligence every single day on who's being arrested for what and when and by whom, so that we can stop allowing ourselves to become victims of cross-border hopscotch, where the bad guys move from one side to the other depending on whether or not we're out there and on the street. So there's nothing more important or more gratifying, I think, than seeing these men and women working together and saving lives. I'm so grateful to have been able to be a part of it along with Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably right. And in 2006, we decided to believe that, yes, we can reduce violent crime in every part of our state. And some of the places that we thought might have had the biggest challenges turned out to be the places where the greatest number of lives were saved. And so with that, it's now my pleasure to bring up Daniel Webster, the doctor, the professor. I guess we could also call him a statesman, from Johns Hopkins University. Talk to us a little bit about the gun technology. Daniel?
Thank you, Governor. It's really an honor to be here, to be with so many individuals who have devoted themselves to making Maryland a safer place. I've been studying gun violence for about 25 years in efforts to reduce gun violence, and much of my work focuses on policies that are designed to do something very basic and common sense, which is keep guns out of the hands of criminals and other people who are too dangerous to have them. Now, the governor already has shared a lot of numbers with you. I'm a researcher. I'm going to not actually overwhelm you with some data, but I'm going to start with some basic ideas. So this basic idea, one side of this debate, so to speak, believes and promotes an idea that it's impossible to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, that they're always going to be able to get them on the illicit market, and so we should throw our hands up and basically arm ourselves with teeth and shoot it out with them. I'm not so sure that's so fantastic public safety policy, but really this idea it doesn't line up with actually what we know from the data and research. First of all, how do you think those guns get into those illicit markets? It's because we don't have the laws and that hold people accountable for not diverting guns to people who shouldn't have them. And much of the Firearm Safety Act of 2013 is directed at that principal idea. It's an idea and a value, which is we want to hold people accountable so that only law-abiding people have guns. It's not really all that controversial an idea, in my opinion. So there's sort of three key components in this act that address that objective. Perhaps the most important, and perhaps the reason why we're here today, is we put in place a licensing system for people purchasing regulated firearms. And it's an idea that's been in place in a number of other states. Those states have some of the lowest rates of firearm death in the United States. I recently published a study that showed that when Missouri, in its wisdom, decided to get rid of such a policy, research that I did showed that they immediately had a surge in gun homicides, roughly around 50 additional gun homicides per year, attributable to them getting rid of this key measure of accountability that keeps guns out of the hands of dangerous people. We're now in the process of studying a Connecticut law that's very similar to what we adopted here in Maryland, and the preliminary data look very, very promising. And it looks like over the first 10 years that law was in place, hundreds of fewer homicides as a result. So this is a policy that is shown to save lives. Two other key parts of that Firearm Safety Act that I believe is going to do an even better job of keeping guns out of the wrong hands. We've empowered our state police to actually address some of the problem gun dealers that we have. When in the past, you could repeatedly, in essence, get away with not obeying state firearm sales laws, and the state police had little ability, little tools to actually address that. Now they do with our new law. Research that I've done showed that that is one of the most important ways to prevent that initial diversion from retail sale into the illicit market. And then finally, the last important piece is mandatory theft and reporting laws for gun owners when they lose track of their guns, that they have to notify law enforcement. It's a fairly basic idea. Again, research that I've done shown that that is associated with fewer guns diverted into the hands of criminals. So I look forward to, as I evaluate a lot of laws, I'm going to be eager to evaluate the effects of this, and if we're consistent with prior history, we're going to continue to drive down gun violence in Maryland.
Thank you. There was a whole coalition of people that were involved in our efforts to pass the legislation, and Vinnie DeMarco was at the forefront of all of that. So let me bring up the man who led us with Marylanders to Prevent Gun Violence, Vinnie DeMarco. Vinnie?
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor. In December 2012, all Americans were shocked and horrified by the terrible tragedy in Newtown when those kids were devastated by assault weapons. President Obama called on Congress to take action at the national level. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Luckily, here in Maryland, led by Governor O'Malley, Lieutenant Governor Brown, Senator Frosch, Delegate Dume, the General Assembly enacted one of the best gun violence prevention laws in the country. This law had several elements. One of the elements was to ban the kind of high-capacity gun magazines and weapons that were used in that tragedy in Newtown. Those are banned now in Maryland. The gun lobby is trying to overturn that in court, and we commend Attorney General Doug Gansler and his staff for doing a great job in defending that. We believe that will stand up in court. But as Professor Webster pointed out to you, even more important are the provisions in that law that will keep guns out of the wrong hands. Allowing Superintendent Brown, Colonel Brown, and his staff to regulate bad gun dealers is critical. Senator Frosch has been pushing for that for years, and we're thrilled that that's in this new law. And more importantly, the fingerprint licensing of handgun purchasers. Governor O'Malley, I want to thank you deeply. When tragedy happened in Newtown, Governor O'Malley sent out word to people like Daniel Webster, what's the best thing we could do? Not just the minimum. What's the best we can do? And the governor looked at the data and concluded that this fingerprint licensing is the best we could do. And thank you, Governor, General Assembly, for enacting it. Professor Webster has told you that there's data from other states showing that this will work. Well, we don't have a lot of data yet in Maryland. It just took effect October 1. We do know this, ladies and gentlemen. Between January 1, 2014 and April 30th, 2014, there was a 21% drop in homicides compared to the same period in 2013.
It didn't drop, it was driven down.
It was driven down. Thank you. It didn't drop all by its lonesome. It was driven down by the policies of the O'Malley Brown administration, including the Firearms Safety Act of 2013. During that same period, January 1, 2014, April 30th, 2014, there was a 12% drop. There were non-fatal shootings were driven down
There we go.
by 12. Thank you, Governor. I'm slow, but I get it. Let me repeat that. From January 1, 2014 to April 30th, 2014, gun homicides were driven down by 21%, and non-fatal shootings were driven down by 12% in the state of Maryland. Many lives were saved. Professor Webster is going to, over the next couple of years, do the kind of analysis he's done in these other states. We believe it will show that the fingerprint licensing, along with the other policies the governor talked about, will help save lives in Maryland. We know from the experience, fingerprint licensing saves lives. Ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't easy to do. The gun lobby fought hard. It only happened because we had leaders like Governor O'Malley, Lieutenant Governor Brown, Senator Frosch, Delegate Dume, and a broad coalition that the governor mentioned. of hundreds of faith, community, labor, business, and healthcare groups who came together to demand it. We have two of the representatives here I want to recognize. Jen Poliakonis. Jen, from Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, one of the most important organizations in the country to fight gun violence. And thank you, Jen, for all you did and are doing. And the faith community. The faith community, ladies and gentlemen, really came strongly behind this. And I want to recognize Gary Gillespie, who heads the Central Maryland Ecumenical Council. Thank you, Gary, for all you did. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a tremendous success in Maryland, and we're going to build on that. Let me just end with this. Ladies and gentlemen, the states that have these laws, that have had them for decades, people are still dying in New York City. People are still dying in these other cities, like in Connecticut, that have these laws. They're being killed by guns that come from other states. States that enact these laws, like New York City, 90% plus of the gun homicides are done by guns that come from other states. So what we're going to have to do, and Governor, I promise you we're going to do this, is we're going to let people all across the country know about what we did here in Maryland so that they can enact this same law to protect their people and ours. So thank you very much. And Governor, thank you. And County Executive Rushern Baker. Rushern Baker, you've been working on this for decades. We love Rushern Baker for all his success. So let me just close with a big fat thank you to Governor Martin O'Malley for doing what needed to be done after the massacre at Newtown.
Hey, thank you, Denny. Thanks for your good work, man. Thank you. The 26% reduction that we've achieved in violent crime in Maryland would not have been possible were it not for the tremendous strides that have been made here in Prince George's County. So please welcome County Executive Rushern Baker.
Can we give Vinnie DeMarco a round of applause for all the work that he's doing? You know, he started with healthcare and has now gone over to gun safety and making Maryland safer, and we certainly wouldn't be a safer place without your work. I'm here to thank everybody, starting with the leader of this great state and a great partner to Prince George's County. And I know that we couldn't have done this without his help, and that's our Governor Martin O'Malley. Can we give him a round of applause? You know, the O'Malley-Brown administration have been terrific partners. Certainly, we look at the numbers that are down in Prince George's County, and I was blessed when I came into office that I had two partners that came in at the same time. One who's just a rock star in Prince George's County and in this state, and that is our fabulous state's attorney, Angela Alstabrook. Can we give her? And certainly, we were blessed, and we say this a lot, the chief and I, is that we not only got a sheriff, but we got a former police chief, so we use all of his brain to help us bring this down, and that's our Sheriff Melvin High. Can we give him a round of applause? And I know the chief is going to say this, so I'll steal some of his thunder, and that is we certainly couldn't have done this without Governor, two of the partners that you allowed us to team up with, and that is Colonel Brown, who does a great job in partnering with us. Can we give him a round of applause? And Tammy Brown, who has stepped in and done a fantastic job. Can we give her another round of applause? Certainly I know we're going to hear from Delegate Dumais, and thank you for the work that you're doing there. I was on Judiciary, so I know how hard that is, so definitely give her a round of applause. And my good friend, and who I think is going to go on to do a great job in the next job he's going to have, and that is Senator Brian Frost, who's great. Can we give him a round of applause? Can I also thank two people who have done a really good job, but one who's leading our public safety efforts and is standing to the side, and that's Barry Stanton. Can we give him a round of applause, please? And I thought this was a great place to welcome our new Chief Administrative Officer, Nick Majette, who sees the great team he's going to be working with. So the only statistic that I will lay out for you, and I know our great police chief is going to come up and he's going to thank the men and women of not only the police department, the fire department, corrections, all of our team, Homeland Security, all of our team. But the number that I look at every morning is the first thing that I do is I look at our homicide rates. And this morning I looked at it. I always do it with like this with one eye half closed. And we were down 45% in homicide over last year's numbers. And that is down from an all-time low of 3 years ago. And so one of the things that the chief promised me is that we would see stability in reducing not just homicides, but reducing crime. Now, I have to admit, when I started out as county executive, I didn't always look at the homicide numbers or even our police numbers. In fact, I didn't get the report that comes out every morning. But, you know, I would go to Annapolis and I'd have a meeting with the governor on health care, and he said, hey, your numbers are down, da-da-da. I said, okay, and I call back and I check. I call the governor about education. He said, hey, you know, your crime numbers are down, da-da-da-da. I finally said, you know what? How does he know this stuff before I know it? And they said he looks at the numbers every day. Just think about that for a minute. You're the governor. You're not the mayor. You're not county executive. You don't have to. But you care that much about what's going on in the state to look at the numbers, to call up, ask if you need help, ask if you need other resources. That's the kind of leadership that drives this down. When I told the governor the way that we wanted to sustain crime reduction in Prince George's County was an idea that we had called Transforming Neighborhoods Initiative, where we targeted 6 areas throughout the county where not just crime was going up, dropout rates, lack of job opportunities, lack of environmental resources there. You name it, it was in these 6 areas of Prince George's County. When I said to him, Senator Benson, that we wanted to drive that down and could he help, he said yes. He sent his team over there. So we would not be able to sustain this reduction had it not been for that support. And that support by the governor made me look at our numbers every morning. Of course, now it makes my morning scary. But I want to, again, thank him. But certainly, you know, we couldn't have done it in Prince George's County without doing the first thing, and I'm glad I did this. You know, the first decision that they allowed me to make on my very own, and I'm proud to say it was my decision, and that was I needed somebody that I can trust to run the police department. And I had to pick a gentleman, quite honestly, I did not know. I think we had only met twice before I decided that he's the person to lead our police department. And it was absolutely the best decision I ever made, and that's my good friend, Mark McGaugh. Governor, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Baker, and good morning.
Good morning.
This morning, we're discussing an issue that's a top priority for law enforcement. It's reducing violent crime in our community. The persistent and destructive problem of violence impacts communities like ours across the country on a daily basis. Ranging from neighborhood conflicts to targeted killings, violent crime universally challenges law enforcement and taxes our resources. The generous funding provided by Governor O'Malley and his Office of Crime Control and Prevention, and I also would like to just mention Tammy Brown and Ed Parker. Your partnership has made a tremendous difference for us here in the county, and thank you. But through that funding, we've been able to staff a gun offender registry unit, fund additional DNA, drug, fingerprint analysis, support our domestic violence unit, and has allowed us to deploy more uniformed officers on the streets of Prince George's County. During County Executive Baker's first term, Prince George's County has seen a historic drop in violent crime, most notably in the homicide rate. Homicides are down, like Mr. Baker said, more than 45% compared to the same time last year. That's on top of an almost 40% drop from 2010 to 2013. Overall, violent crime continues to drop in 2014, which is in addition to a 30% drop between 2010 and 2013. Despite this tremendous progress, there's still much work to be done. We also recognize that when we talk about statistics and crime reduction, that this brings little or no consolation to those who have been victimized in the past. It's actually because of you and the pain that you've suffered that drives us, and it reinforces our commitment to reducing crime every day. Partnerships and collaboration are the key platform in reducing violent crime. I'd like to thank Mr. Baker for his holistic approach to fighting crime. Every agency in this county government is involved in this fight. You cannot arrest your way out of issues, and Mr. Baker understands that. I'd like to thank the rank and file of this police department and the command staff Over the last 3.5 years, they've done everything I've asked them to do. And I'd just like to thank them publicly. I'd like to thank Governor O'Malley and his staff, Colonel Brown and the Maryland State Police who work with us daily on issues. Thank you, Colonel. State's Attorney, Ms. Alsobrooks, you're going to hear from in a minute, is tenacious in her fight for justice. And she's been a tremendous asset to the county. Sheriff High, thank you for all that you do for us every day. Our municipal agencies, our federal partners, and our U.S. Attorney, who's also stepped up in our fight. And our most important partner, which is our community. Mr. Baker's holistic approach involves everyone being engaged in this fight to reduce crime and has shown great dividends. But even one victim is too many in our community. So much of this wouldn't be possible without the community support. Crime is down in Prince George's County because of our partnerships with our community, our businesses, government partners, and we are not satisfied and we're not done yet. Our commitment to our community is to continue to drive down crime in 2014. And because of the continuing support of Governor O'Malley and his administration, we are confident that these reductions will continue. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Let me bring up Sheriff High. There's like 10 things I learned 15 years ago when I was mayor, Sheriff, that there's 10 things that every department needs to do, and one of those is making sure you serve the warrants on known offenders, from the most dangerous being at the top. We're joined by Joanne Benson, Senator Benson. Senator, thank you for being here. So, Sheriff, ladies and gentlemen, Sheriff High.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning. You know, when I came into office, we had a challenge around unserved warrants. Thanks to the help of our county executive and the governor, we were able to get some additional resources to focus our strategy. That strategy was to focus on violent offenders first, to go out and arrest the people who were creating the continuing problem in our community of violence against our fellow citizens. And so we take that as our most sincerest and strongest obligation to safeguard and protect our citizens. We made great progress with the help of our team, and certainly on behalf of the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, it's been my great privilege to join with this Prince George's County team that I think has led the state in this effort to reduce crime in our state and make Maryland one of the safest states in America. Thank you.
Our quarterback for prosecutions, State's Attorney's Office, a critically important quarterback in this fight, Angela Alsobrooks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm standing back there and I'm smiling every now and again because I think this really is a morning to smile. We are so proud to be here this morning. I want to thank the governor for being here in Prince George's. I want to thank him for being such an awesome partner. I brag all the time. I never go anywhere without reminding everyone that he was once upon a time a prosecutor. And I think that does explain his interest and his intelligence around this issue. This is a wonderful day in Prince George's. It's a wonderful day in our state as we recognize some of the lowest crime rates we've seen since the 1970s. That is significant to all of us. And I think it is most appropriate that we discuss it and celebrate it here in Prince George's County, where we have seen such tremendous strides that I think have contributed to those numbers. In fact, we're feeling so good about the way that things are going here in Prince George's. If Mr. Executive doesn't mind, I think we'd like to extend an offer to the governor to stay here for a while, to become a permanent resident, right? And, you know, as we talk about the declines, again, which we are so proud of, and what an awesome team we have assembled here, we talk about a 45% reduction in homicides, how significant that is. But I want to remind all of us, and I think we've already said it, that for those of us who interface with the families each and every day, who come to our courthouses, the mothers who we have held in our arms, who have had their lives changed forever, these numbers are significant to us in an entirely different way. It means so much to us. But I have to tell you that I would be remiss if I would stand here and accept credit not only for those reductions, but for the men and women, not only the police officers and the sheriffs and all of our other partners, but I have to talk a moment about the prosecutors who also make it so possible for these declines to continue. We have said from the beginning, and it is true still today, that every single person we arrest would go free without a prosecutor. And so as we have seen the 45% reduction in homicides, we have likewise statewide, supported that with a 93% conviction rate, which is also a very significant number that we've had. And these homicide cases all possible through the support of our governor, through the support of our absolutely phenomenal county executive who understood from the beginning the important need to support the men and women who try these cases every day, who need funding to do so. And so I want to thank the governor who has given to us more than $3 million over the last 3 years to fund the prosecutors, to make sure that we had all of the training that we needed, that we had the technology that we needed, to thank the county executive as well, who's allowed us to pay well these prosecutors and to support our efforts. And so it's been really significant to us. Now, we didn't do this alone. We've had our partners here, and Delegate Dumais, who's been there for us all along the way. I want to thank Senator Frosch as well, who's been a tremendous partner to us in passing legislation to make sure that we continue to send the message, not only in Prince George's, but across the state, that we simply will not tolerate violence in our state and in our county through the Firearm Safety Act. We were really fortunate this past session as well to pass legislation that would make it a crime to make threats of mass violence in Maryland, and we were only one of 7 states in the country that did not have this legislation, but thanks to Delegate Dumais and Senator Frosch, we were able to get that done, and to raise as well, we had as well a statute of limitations on using a handgun in the commission of a crime of violence, which made no sense at all, that we could charge a person with homicide but could not charge them with the very handgun that they used to commit that homicide after 1 year. And so we were able, after a big fight, we're able to finally, thank you, Senator Frosch and Delegate Dumais, able to release that as well. And so we've made great strides. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of you. And again, it is not just that we talk about the numbers. We're so happy about them, but it is simply not good enough. We still have so much work to do, and we're reminded, as I said, every single day as we look in the faces of these mothers and fathers and other family members who we have given our solemn promise to do our level best to make sure that violence continues to decline, that it is eliminated from our community. We owe it to our children, we owe it to our community, and we are relentless in making sure that we get there. So thank you so much, and thank you again, Mr. Governor, for your sustained support. He came to us literally the first day that we got here and said, what can we do? Thank you, Tammy Brown. Thank you, Barry Stanton. And we've worked together. That's been the operative word. We have worked together, and I think that we're pleased with the results, although we still have a ways to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Brian Frosch, Chair of the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thanks to all of these good partners, Kathleen Dumais and Senator Benson and Vinnie DeMarco and Governor O'Malley, and I had the opportunity to look at this at the policy level, and more recently I've had the opportunity through the courtesy of County Executive Baker and State's Attorney Alsobrooks and Chief Magod to actually ride around Prince George's County and look at the challenges and the methods that they've used to drive crime down in Prince George's County. Let me just say a couple of words about the Firearm Safety Act and the sort of lesser-known reasons why this will help in the fight to reduce crime. First, I want to talk about the additional authority that we gave to Colonel Brown to oversee gun stores. We know that this is a critical factor because 1% of the gun stores in the United States of America sell 60% of the guns that are used in crimes. And we had a poster child in Maryland for this very problem. It was a store called Valley Guns in Baltimore County. And Valley Guns was charged by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, affectionately referred to as ATF, with 900 violations of federal law. They could not account for a third of their inventory. The reason they couldn't account for a third of their inventory is because they'd been selling it to criminals. 500 of their weapons showed up in crimes. And it took the ATF 9 years to put them out of business. For the first 7 of those years, they were fighting with the owner. They finally pulled his license. And when they did, he transferred the business to his mother. And he continued to stand behind the cash register and sell the guns for 2 more years before the ATF put his mother out of business too. We've given this authority, we've given the tools to the state police to get these bad folks out of business. And that can make a huge difference in keeping guns away from criminals, as can the provision that Professor Webster talked about, the fingerprint licensing. It's absolutely critical. We know that in our sister states that are demographically similar to Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, that have these fingerprint to purchase requirements, gun deaths, gun violence is much lower than it is in Maryland, and Professor Webster is going to continue to study it, but now Maryland is going to be part of that mix. One of the reasons we think that it works is because if I am disqualified from owning a handgun because I've committed a felony, I can say to my girlfriend, hey, look, sweetie, here's $500. Go down to the gun store, get me a gun. She can go buy that gun because she can pass the background test, bring it home, put it on the nightstand, and if I've gone out and stuck up a 7-Eleven, she can say, well, gee, I didn't know he was going to do that. But if she first has to go to the state police, give her fingerprints to the state police, she may love me, but she may not love me enough to go make that conscious decision. And we believe that that's why the fingerprint to purchase requirements will continue to drive down crimes, keep guns out of the hands of criminals. So all these fine people here have done a fantastic job, and it's an honor to stand here with them. I think we're going to continue to make great progress in Maryland. Thank you very much.
Okay, one more, and then we'll open up the questions. Central Leader, the Vice Chair of House Judiciary, excuse me, let me try that again in case they clip it. Central Leader in our fight to drive down violent crime. She is the Vice Chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Delegate Kathleen DeMay.
Well, thank you, and it is a true honor and privilege to be here with these remarkable people, and it was an honor and privilege to work with the administration on the Firearms Safety Act in 2013. But a great deal of credit goes to a large number of people in the House of Delegates, and certainly to the Speaker of the House, Michael Bush, who was hands-on throughout the process. In the House, no, absolutely a round of applause for the Speaker. As you can imagine, and I think County Executive Baker referred to the House Judiciary Committee being a little difficult on occasion, but we actually in the House took the approach that we needed to get everyone involved in this so that it was not just the House Judiciary Committee. And so it was assigned to two committees, because a piece of the Firearms Safety Act that has not been referred to yet is that we also had a mental health component in that act that I think is also critically important. So the bill in the House was assigned not just to Judiciary, but also to the Health and Government Operations Committee. And so Delegate Pete Hammond, actually Chairman Pete Hammond, was also critically involved in this. And I think another part that will help save lives is the fact that the governor and the O'Malley-Brown administration also dedicated a significant amount of money to a new mental health crisis center. Because one of the things that we really have to do, and with all of the tragedies and mass shootings that we've seen, we have to better identify individuals with mental health issues. And that's one of the things that this bill also addresses. I am personally dedicated to trying to make sure that we can reduce gun violence, and I am delighted with the statistics that we've heard. I have a younger brother that is a Montgomery County police officer. I also have a younger brother that recently retired from the ATF. So public safety, as the governor started this press conference, certainly is one of the things that, as someone dedicated to public service, public safety is something that we absolutely are dedicated to and is the number one thing that we work on. I'm also a family law attorney, and domestic violence is one of my areas of practice. And the O'Malley-Brown administration has been very involved in that. Something else that we've done over the last 8 years, as part of the O'Malley-Brown administration dedication to domestic violence, we've also passed legislation that says when you get a final protective order, guns are removed when the final protective order is issued. So there's a long list of things that we've done over the last 8 years to try and reduce violence against women, as the governor indicated, and I'm delighted that I was able to be a part of it, and the O'Malley-Brown administration certainly deserves a great deal of credit, as does Chairman Valerio, who's allowed these things to get through, and I am appreciative of his assistance. Thank you very much.
Questions? You all have been very patient. I mean, it's a lot of people, but you know what? That's what it takes. We've been able to achieve a 26% reduction in violent crime since 2006 because of the cooperation of all of these folks. It's about common platforms, better connections, smarter technology, individual lives being saved. Questions? Okay. All right. It's a wrap. Thank you all very much.